so that was one of the places that I started getting involved with inventors. And my father was an inventor. He tried many things, worked 3 jobs sometimes to support 9 kids, and made all the mistakes you can possibly imagine. And so after my career with GE and working with new products, I realized what not to do and what the possibilities really were, and that's why I got involved with the RMIA. And since then I've nationally published on the topic, and I work with inventors and businesses. So we've done massive projects that have taken one company from $500 million company up to $12.1 billion in a buyout within 6 months. And it was all based on the new products that were marketing based. So anyway, in here you don't want to disclose specifics about what you have. Michael, you probably know that, I'm sure, and Bill, we probably went over that last time, just want to remind you. In generality is fine, but you don't want to lose any of your patent rights at all. So, speaking generalities, if you want to meet privately with someone, make sure you have a good solid NDA, not one you download off the internet, because they cover much other than the table they're sitting on. So. Okay, and we are the only nonprofit educational inventors association in the Rocky Mountain region. So we're not here to sell you something. We're here to make sure that you have the right information so that you can make good decisions about whatever it is that you do.
Oh, announce the women's entrepreneur.
Oh, yes. I'm the plenary speaker for the USPTO's conference. It's a Women Entrepreneurial Symposium that's coming up on the 30th and 31st of this month. They've asked me to speak on marketing. Everyone else is, again, patenting, trademarks, what's going on with the patent office that's coming here. It's going to be a 2-day, actually it's a 1.5-day event for women.
So the guys aren't supposed to show up? How does that work?
Hey, I don't know. They may take guys.
It's okay for men to go. I asked that too.
I think the focus is drag. Who knows? Who knows anymore, right? No, I think it's primarily focused on women entrepreneurs to encourage women in science and industry in particular. So if you have a wife that you'd like to send,
Not interested in
Spies.
send them along, because it's really great information. It really is, and they're doing a lot of things to encourage.
They'll have a lot of patent office representatives there, so if you have any general patent
Send them
office
along with it.
questions,
There'll be a panel discussion.
they're actually running the symposium, but you have to register through the patent office website, and it's $50 for 2 days, but it includes food and drink. It's not too bad.
Really
And where is
cheap.
it?
University of
It's DU.
Denver, at the law school.
Yeah, so I highly encourage you to, if you know somebody that
It's,
ought to be there to have them go.
The very last weekend in May. Two full days.
Mhm. So, with that, one of the things that I think is very important from a marketing perspective for inventors is learning about how to leverage a trade show to your advantage. And so I want to go over the options that are available today, and you can kind of decide for yourself what's best for you, because there's no one right way. Sometimes you have a lot of choices, and sometimes you have to take a lesser choice because of your financial situation or where you're at with your product development process, that. So I think as I go through these different scenarios on the trade shows, you'll get a better idea about which one is most suited for you and your product, or if it's even appropriate at this time for what you're developing out. I do have handouts. There they go. Feel free to take these too, and I'll be following right along with this, but at least you'll have the handouts for later.
Thanks.
Okay, 5. There right now there are 5 different types of trade shows. And I know most people think, oh, you can probably think of 2 right off the top of your head, but we're going to go through all of them so that you have an idea about how to leverage them. One of the most important things you can do is to start out by thinking that trade shows are actually an investment in the future of your product. It's not an immediate thing, it's an investment for what's going to happen after the show. So before you even go to that show, you want to set objectives and then stick with them. Don't wander all over the place. I mean, think of what it is you want to accomplish from that show. And prior to the show, there is a pre-marketing, there's a during the show marketing, and then after the show marketing things that you need to do. And most people, sadly enough, it's over 80% never follow up a lead they get at a trade show.
80%.
Yep,
Wow.
pretty sad.
Wow.
And what happens a lot of times is that people get so excited about everything they hear at the trade show, and oh, people are going to do this, and somebody's interested in my product, and oh, Kmart came and talked to me, or Ace Hardware, I talked to them, oh, it's going to happen. And then you go home and there's this letdown. And the letdown is because you're not picking up the telephone. You're waiting for people to call you.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary for people to pick up a phone and start dialing. And not only that, before you even dial, you have to figure out what it is you're going to say. You have to have your contacts all organized. So when you call Joe Sotheby with some company, you know why you're calling him. What did he want when he stopped by the booth? If you didn't write that down or know how to take advantage of that and leverage that during the show as part of your pre-planning for your marketing at that show, you've missed a huge opportunity. And we're not talking a small opportunity because of the fact that you had time to prepare. You were going to the show. You should have known this and put this together, because otherwise you're just throwing money down the drain. Don't go. If you're not going to follow through, don't go. Unless you're employed by a company that's making you go, and then you sit at the industry trade show and you can tell who's the employee. They're sitting in the corner, they're talking on the telephone, they got their arms crossed, they're looking the other direction, they're not paying attention to people. And that's why a lot of the trade shows are going by the wayside, and companies aren't sending a lot of people to trade shows. You know, it's dwindling in attendance because they know this is what's happening. There are other ways of marketing that sometimes can even be more effective today. So it's been dropping gradually over the last probably 5 years, maybe 10 years, the attendance has. Though the attendance for inventors went up for a long period of time right after we started doing that with the hardware show. And there are a lot of reasons for that. But and the other thing here is I say manage your expectations. Too many people go to the show thinking, oh, I'm going to get orders for my product, and what they have is a prototype. They think that somebody's going to come up to them at the show and they're going to want to license it. And they don't even have manufacturing in place. They don't have anything but a provisional application on file. So the expectations you need to know before you go, what it is that makes sense that you can accomplish when you do go. Otherwise you'd be very disappointed with the results that you end up having. So the 5 types of shows that are out there are the inventor trade shows. They're strictly for inventors. The second is an industry trade show, like the Consumer Electronics Show. I'm going to go into each of these individually as well. Then there are company shows, and I'm going to talk. Those are very closed. You have to be by invitation to go to those. Then there are reverse trade shows, which are really interesting, but very worthwhile. And then consumer shows. So let's talk about the first one first. And that's the inventor trade shows. They're very low cost, and we think $3,000 to go to the hardware show or set up a booth there, and maybe hotel accommodations and transportation is expensive, but in reality that's probably the cheapest way you're going to go to a trade show. other than just walking a trade show. Okay, if you can walk them.
If you can.
Yeah, some of the trade shows you can't walk. You have to be part of an association to even go to them. And I'll mention that later. The Inventor trade shows are for early stage products. It helps you practice presenting, what it is you have. So speaking in public and talking to other people and kind of having a 30-second elevator pitch ready so that when people stop at your booth for a very short period of time, you've got something to tell them right then. So if you're not well prepared, you lose that opportunity as well. It's a great learning opportunity because when you go to a bigger show or a show that is more relevant for your industry, when you're further along with your product, then you have those skills in place. You know what to look for, you're more comfortable talking to people, especially for the engineering type or the mechanical type that tends to be, a lot of the inventor arena anyway. The attendees at an Inventor trade show tend to be service providers, the media, the general public. You will also find companies there that may not be there for what you think they're there for. And you will find some foreigners will come through these Inventor trade shows because they're pretty open and with cameras in hand. And because your product is at an early stage, it is prime target for copying, improving, and making offshore. So, be cautious of that. I've seen some people escorted out of the hardware show with armed guards because they were doing this sort of thing. And it happens every show.
Did you see that, Langston, at all?
Not yet. I wasn't privileged enough to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not fun to see that happening, but it does. So understanding that an Inventor trade show will attract, or an Inventor area in a trade show even, will attract that kind of attention because you've got a new product. So a lot of inventors go to these. The downside, is that you're showing the world right there. Okay, so you better be pretty tight on your intellectual property, and just filing the day before for a provisional application is not enough. A nice thing about the Inventor trade shows is that they give out a lot of awards. The Minnesota Inventors Congress in particular, up in Minnesota, started by 3M a long time ago and by the state with 3M's backing, is one of the oldest in the country. They've just moved it from Redwood Falls to the Twin Cities area this last year.
Wow.
So that improved the show, the attendance, and the number of people they can get, to actually put up booths as well. But the Inventor trade shows are strictly inventors. You don't have people there selling products. It's not an industry show. You'll see a wide variety of products from all areas, all industries, everything from software to farm equipment. So they are just what I'm talking about. They are for inventors only. Typical examples are the Minnesota, which I mentioned, the Impacts, which is put on by InventHelp, though they don't want to publicize the fact that they're connected, but they are. Impacts is a show that's in Pennsylvania. It's very large. It draws a lot of media attention. The National Hardware Show has the Inventors area. So if you think of that as an inventor show inside of another show, that's a positive because you're in an industry area and it's an inventor show.
Bonnie, are the inventor shows losing or gaining in popularity, or?
Well, I think you have to kind of think about why you want to go there. Yeah. And if it's win awards so that you can get your product refined or get some feedback from other people, it can be helpful. But they usually don't make money. They break even if they're lucky. A lot of them have lost so much money that they've just closed down. The one here in Colorado was typical of that.
Oh, the DaVinci.
DaVinci, yeah. They didn't make any money on that.
So that's done.
Yeah. I don't think they're even having it this year at all, are
Yeah,
they?
they started
Roger?
to plan it and then we didn't hear anything.
No.
Wow.
So,
Gosh.
as far as I know, I think they're shutting it down. I know they sold their ownership rights to DaVinci did. And so, I'm not even sure they'll do that, because I think once they get the reality of they're not going to make money on it, they might not do it.
Well, from the inventor's perspective, though, it's like, it's low cost and it's a good practice show, but you're not really going to get exposure to contacts much. It's pretty limited.
Yeah. And you get a lot of products in these inventor shows that are nowhere near ready for commercialization, or you'll also see some that are in the show and somebody filed for a provisional application the day before they went to the show or whatever, and if you're knowledgeable in the industry and you walk through the show, you see it and you say, oh, I've seen 6 of those. No. They're already out there.
Bonnie, as a licensing agent, what's commercially ready for you? What's that mean for you, like with products you're working with?
I don't do licensing.
Okay.
No.
You don't? Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And one of there are a lot of reasons for that, and I could do a whole presentation on licensing and why.
Yeah.
Okay, I did do that at one time.
Okay, but that's no, it's good.
No, never mind. No. Yeah.
From looking at the attendees here, these are not the exhibitors, service providers, media, and general public. I can't see any reason an inventor would go to a show like this.
Well, they're not getting
if I were an inventor,
potential licensees and partners.
right?
and,
That's what I would think you'd want to get if you went to
Well,
something.
Well,
They may
that's
be
what you
looking
have
for-
to go to the trade show, but that's much more expensive. You usually have to go
Right.
to another city, and so the inventor ones are like practice,
Oh,
low
okay.
cost.
It's just practice. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The inventors that
Local.
go to them don't think of it that way, because
yeah.
they advertise them as, come find a licensee.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
that's true.
Ace Hardware is going to be here. It may be the local Ace Hardware sales clerk down the corner.
Right. I see.
Okay.
I see. I guess I don't think like that because I've been in technical pre-sales for decades. So.
Yeah, it's a little different mentality, a different
Yeah.
type of an arrangement.
Okay.
For that type of a show. But inventors are looking for the cheapest way out, and their dream is they're going to find somebody to license their product. Okay. Now, they may get somebody interested, but it's sort of, if you were here for the investor presentation, it's sort of like looking for an angel, only worse. Okay?
But if I were looking for products to license, would be the thing to go to? Or is everything just way too crude, not ready for licensing?
Well, it depends on what stage you want to license it at. If you were a company that's, let's say in fence products, and you know that it's a big farming area up in Minnesota, so I'm going to go to the Inventors Conference up in Minnesota because I want to pick somebody's brain and look that over, and look and see if there's anything worth licensing. Well, you're going to do your due diligence just like an investor would,
Right.
okay? Is it a provisional application? Have they filed a full utility? Okay. Who did the filing? Was it one of these shyster marketing companies that put through a design patent and it should have been a utility? You're going to do that due diligence as a person who wants to license that, right? So if the inventors are too early in the process and haven't really got it refined, they're really opening themselves up to be ripped off.
Right.
That's just the way it goes.
The flip side of my question would be, how do I find potential products that I might want to license if I don't go to these shows?
Okay, that's, these
There are
shows,
avenues to
if
do
they're
that.
at this show, then you would want to know, okay, what products are being shown here? Okay, if any of them sound like they're right for you, go, walk the show, talk to them. Okay, because that way you're going to learn, can you, all right, I'm going to wear the other hat. Can I get around this? Is this inventor actually going to file for a utility? is this really not new at all? You understand what I'm saying?
I've just seen that a lot of people come up with a great idea and they just don't know how to execute on it.
Most don't.
And so you need somebody else like me who has a little more experience on executing. Not that I have a lot of money, but I know how to execute. So that's part of the puzzle, you know. And so.
Yeah, and that's why I used to go to the shows, because, you know, with my background, I can execute. I can pull in all the team that I need to make a product successful, and I've done that for many years. But even going to those shows under that premise, I found very few that had the potential. But even if you find one at a show, it can be a gold mine.
Right.
So I wouldn't dismiss it, but I would check and see who's going to be exhibiting. If you can get that in advance, and then get your ticket and go. Okay. Yeah, these are the cautions about going to Inventor trade shows. Is it really the best option for you? Are you getting exposure before you really have your intellectual property in place? Do you know how you're going to take this thing to market? If, let's say you don't get a licensee, which is, hello, Teresa, come on in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sorry.
So if you don't know what you're going to do if you don't get a licensee, or you don't get somebody who's willing to partner with you to take it forward, like a Bill or whatever, you know, whoever, which you probably won't, then you need a backup plan before you go. So don't assume that you're going to find somebody at a show. You know, I mean, it'd be great if you did, but at the same time, you know, these are kind of tough to find at. Now, if you're going there and you're really looking to get your product, refined better, and the Langston comes up to your booth and says, you know, I could really help you out with this. You really need some good 3D drawings on this. Then, yes, that may be helpful to you because you found a source to help you out. At these inventor shows, you'll find scam artists are all over the place. I mean, a few of them got thrown out of the Minnesota show every year. Invent Help is not allowed to be there. They've been banned from that show for years, and they still try to send people in there, and they get escorted out by the NRO.
They keep changing their name, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
They do.
Yeah, and that's typical of the shysters that don't deliver what the inventor expects. They deliver what their contracts say, but not what's expected by the inventor. And so the whole thing is just set up to fail. But they're making a lot of money on it because of naive inventors. So Minnesota just made the decision that they're not going to have these people in there. And that's why another group, particular person in town, is not allowed to be in the inventor area too. Hardware show banned it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that, yeah.
Okay, the second type of show is an industry trade show. And industry trade shows are high cost, some of them exorbitantly high. You can pay $25,000 to $50,000 just for a 10x10 booth in some of them. And that's not your fees to get in. That's not the $400 little TV that you might need to run a loop that you could go out and buy for $100. And you have to use all union help. There are a lot of different things that factor into these big industry shows that you may not know. Some of them are full as much as a year in advance. So when you're timing an industry show, that's another thing you need to consider when you're developing out your product, is the timing of how you're going to get there. Is your product ready to go? Because an industry show is a little different than an inventor show in that the industry shows usually have the same companies back every year. And then they have separate sections for new products. And most buyers, when they go to an industry show, will go to the new products area first because they want to see what's new.
if they go to the vendor's area or the vendor's booth, you know, they're going to see the products they've had all the time and maybe the same ones they saw last year. So they will go to the vendor's booth if they want to, you know, place an order for that product or something that they, you know, they may have on their list already. I've seen them go into an industry show like this where they have the book and they circle the booths that they want to go to. And they'll go around, look at everything, and then they go back later at the end of the show or toward the end of the show, and then they place their orders. And it's orders for the following year when their shipments come in and they want their shipments. So an industry show, you want to be ready to sell. So your product needs to be market ready. Professional materials, you don't go there with a 3D drawing unless you've got a prototype in the new products area and it's on a boat on the way here. Okay, so that you can maybe take orders at the show. The opportunities at an industry show are great. The connections are wonderful. If you are really looking for products to add to your product line, an industry show is an excellent place to go because you'll find everyone from neophytes with the first time they've ever put up a booth there with products that are brand new, and I've seen this happen where they'll go to the show, they'll put up their booth, they might take a few orders there from the booth to be shipped later, or people are really interested in it, and next thing you know, the next year they're not back because one of the other companies that has been showing at the show year after year has absorbed them, bought them out, brought it in. So that's a good thing. So industry shows will encourage that because you've done all the hard work, the product's ready to go, you may have some sales under your belt, or maybe you're just launching there and you're exhibiting in the new products area. And best case scenario is the first time you show, you've got product available to sell, and you've got it in the new products area, and you've won awards on your new product, and you have your intellectual property in place. That's the best of all worlds. Right? So, but not everybody has that, is that far along. But that's what an industry trade show is for. And I would say it's really an excellent way to get out there. Now, if your product is not ready, I would say go to the industry trade show anyway. Walk the floor. Walk the floor because you want to know, okay, next year, what do I need to do to prepare to be there? What's it going to cost me? Talk to people. Don't disrupt their sales ability, but when you see a booth that you like, that's really interesting. I want to talk to them about why they're here, how they got this far. Wait till it's slower and go talk to them then. Slow traffic time. Because the worst thing that you can do is if you're going there and you've got a product, you want to license it to somebody and you start, harassing the people at the booth when they're trying to sell something. They don't want to be sold to. But if they have downtime, then that's a good time to talk to them. That makes sense?
Not only that, they like people to come by and talk to them during downtime.
That's right.
Because they're bored out of their minds.
That's right, they are. They are. So it's a great time to go, and it's just a sequence. And knowing where you are in that commercialization process is important in choosing which trade show you'll want to go to.
I might also add that you need a really nice looking booth. I mean, it's probably another 5,000 at least.
Oh yeah.
I'm just talking about renting the space.
Like the Inventor show, you're just on a table that's there, but then you have
Right.
you have to have a nice professional looking booth.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be portable and travel with you.
I saw a really nice one. I told the guy, I said, this is one of the nicest booths. And I said, what is that basic, structural thing in the back cost? He said 12 to 13,000. It was just the basic, small
Backdrop.
booth.
Yeah, and they,
Looks good, but
and those are some of the logistic things that if you're not familiar with trade shows, you don't know that you ship all that stuff in advance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you
it's
don't
sitting
have to
there
pay the
waiting
union.
for you. And a lot of times you can't touch it. They will have union help bring it out from the storage facility out to your booth. And then you can start setting up. But they're really great places to go because the industry publications are there. You can talk to them. They like new products. If you are working with somebody that's marketing savvy and can help you by writing a a piece about your product ahead of time. There's nothing a editor likes better than to have an article handed to them that's has good grammar, is written well, and all they got to do is tweak it to fit their publication, and they publish. So you're much more likely to get published if you have a media kit and something that they can publish right away. But this is all about the marketing before, the marketing during, and the marketing after issues that I was talking about earlier. There's so many things that you can leverage when you do one of these shows. You don't want to miss out on anything because you'll know what you missed after the show, and then it's too late. Media's there, product scouts will be there. So companies that are looking for new products will be at an industry trade show. That's Candyland for them. They want to see what's new, what's different. And it's also a great place for people ripping off other people's products. So
It's gonna happen.
it's going to happen. If you have something that's really good, you better be ready to go. When you're at that industry show, cover your backside.
What do you mean by ready to go?
Well, it better be commercially ready to sell,
Ready to
Take
deliver
orders.
on orders.
deliver, okay? And your intellectual property in place.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you mean utility patent pending, or of course issued at that point? But patent pending if you're utility patent.
Yeah, utility patent pending. If you are fortunate enough to have gotten this far with a provisional, that's wonderful.
Mhm.
But you better be sure that you're going to be able to file for that utility.
Yeah.
You know what I
It's a
mean?
whole nother, it's a larger
Yeah,
animal.
because usually inventors
Given
wait.
the money you're spending on an industry trade show, you can afford it.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go, right?
Right. Yeah.
If you can't, then something's,
Uh-huh.
balances out. Yeah.
And
Bonnie, do you, so do you, like if it's a smaller product, did you have inventory on hand for sales? Because you say you want to be able to sell.
I would say have a small run available.
Okay.
And when I've done the work for a client, what we look for is what is this thing going to cost? You know, we do the whole pricing strategy. Are you going to come into the market on the low end? Are you going to come in as a premium? You know, are you a Gucci bag or are you, you know, a Kmart bag? Who are you looking to sell this product? Where do you want to come in? Because you can always drop the price, but you can't increase it. You can't sell it to Kmart and then try to get it into Sharper Image. It doesn't work that way. So this is all about marketing strategy and your placement of, you know, your product in the marketplace. Is, you know, pricing strategy is part of that. And of course, it all plays with what will the market bear, what is the target market you're going after, but also what's your strategy for going in, and what's the cost to manufacture this thing. And not only the cost to manufacture this small run, but you better have your numbers ready for a large run. Because if you're approached by a big company and says, look, I want 100,000 of these, and I want them delivered 20,000 a month over the next period of time, and you choke, they know you're not ready.
Yeah.
You can't handle their order. They won't even consider it.
But it's fair to say, I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm gonna only sell to the Sharper Image. I'm not gonna sell to Walmart.
If that's your target market, right? And again, it goes back to the strategy.
Right, gotta have that in mind.
You know, where are you headed? You know, and a lot of people can sell something in Sharper Image and then turn around and tweak that product and turn around and sell it in Kmart. These are all choices that you make, or another industry. You know, some products will go for multiple industries. So, you know, all of these things are part of your marketing plan as you're putting it together. Where are we going? What is our budget? What bite of this big picture that we would like to be involved in? What part of that can I handle right now? You know, what does my budget, my time, how many people do I have I can work with, pull in with me? What can I afford? Can I get some free labor? Is it free and worthless, or is it free and valuable? You know, there's a lot of ways of looking at that.
So if you have a small product, are you allowed to actually sell it there at the trade show or not?
Some you can, some trade shows you can, some you can only take orders.
I don't think I saw anybody selling at Harvard.
Well,
are they allowed
you
to?
know what though, they're so. I mean, I know a few people that had product on hand, and some people. I mean, yeah, it can, but it's not like an industry show. The
Right.
industry show is where you actually
Well, sometimes they'll sell things on the floor, but that's rare. A lot of the industry shows, no.
Yeah.
It's all taking orders. Now, at
Is
the
it
end
like,
of the
yeah, you
You
have
can get some
minimum
great
quantities,
deals,
like, for your orders.
Yeah.
So, like, I wouldn't go there and wanna sell one item, but if maybe they're willing to take 25 or 50, I might be willing to take their order then.
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends. I mean, you have to decide for yourself, you know, what is that minimum order quantity, and again, it's part of your pricing strategy.
But then I'd be willing to give a sample to some, buddy who.
Mm-hmm. And that's a
like
good point too.
distributor or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of booths have samples that they might give out, or strategically they're under the table. And for a certain person who might have interest that seems like a hot prospect, you might pull a sample out and have them take it. But you don't want to be giving out products because everybody will take them.
Oh yeah.
Okay. The other thing is at industry trade shows, a lot of these people are coming from all different areas of the country. They pack up this stuff and they bring it in, they ship it in. They don't want to take it back. So at the end of the show, a lot of times, I've gotten some really nice things at the ends of shows where I've gone on behalf of clients and, like pet products show. I mean, I love going there. I mean, they've got such novel things all the time, things you will not find in a store because they're just, for multiple reasons, okay? Stores can only have so many items. So they only put so many SKUs on a shelf. But when you go to an industry trade show, you see everything that's available. I mean, whether it's for clothing or whether it's pet products or if it's tractor equipment or doesn't matter. But garden, oh, you just go nuts. I mean, it's just really fun to go to those shows. And my biggest challenge is getting away from a booth to go look because it's like a candy store if you're at an industry show.
I know Gary Neff. He told me at some of the trade shows he's actually sold out. He was able to sell his hash lift kitten, bed lift kitten, and that he's actually at the trade shows he's sold out of all his inventory at the shows, like way before, day one he's sold out. So.
It's a great problem to have.
Do you know ahead of time if you can sell?
Yes, they tell you right up front what you can and cannot do. And most of them, you cannot sell anything out of your booth in an industry show until a certain hour, like when booths are being broken down or something like that. They keep that pretty tight because they don't want, people going around trying to bargain with things and taking stuff out of the show. They want the show to look full. But the bargains are there when it's closing time. For other booth participants, yes.
This might be a little off topic, but I used to go to the Armed Forces Communications and Electronics Association trade show as a vendor.
Mm-hmm.
And they always had like a 3-hour segment in the evening on a certain night, which was the time you were allowed to give away advertising specialties.
Oh, that's
all the
different.
military guys would come in with their wives and this bag, and it was like Halloween.
Oh,
What do you
yeah,
got?
yeah.
We got little F-16 models, we got this, we got candy for the wife, and
Mm-hmm.
it was crazy. Is that common in other trade shows? I've never
I've
seen
not
anywhere
heard
else.
of it done at a specific time,
Okay.
but a lot of trade shows, that's an incentive to come to the booth.
Right, yeah, they're giving away the
Yeah.
little trinkets.
And,
yeah.
people take those trinkets home and they're just, just fun things, or they sit in the bag for a year and you throw it out, the garbage.
Yeah.
But some of the things they give away are pretty cool.
valuable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
What
Yeah.
kind of trinkets do you suggest? Like T-shirts or like little novelty
It kind of
items?
depends on the show and what the price of your item is. Because if you're selling $20,000 pieces of equipment, a T-shirt's nothing. But if your product's only selling for $7, you don't want to be giving away a $20 T-shirt.
It too depends on your customer too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to attract a buyer, you think about who's going to be buying your product, or who's going to be placing orders, and what would attract them. And so I've gone to like I've gone to 2 big trade shows. One is the Consumer Electronics Trade Show.
Oh,
And
That
then-
is massive.
I know, and it's like everybody's just like copying everything, cameras. You can just
Yes.
tell it. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like
Free for
you
all.
know,
Free for all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing show, and then the other one is the Pet Products show,
it.
Super Zoo in Vegas, and
Oh.
so, and one of the things I noticed there was that attracted people was to have those little wheels and to have really cool prizes, and so
Oh,
they could just
yeah.
spin, you know.
That's Las Vegas style.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Spin
but that's
the wheel.
like, I think that's a pretty affordable thing. You can just rent one of those, and then you can have some really nice things. Whether it's like Pet Products, you probably want to have like a variety of different breeds of stuffed animals and that would match what your buyers would be placing orders for, and something that they would want to take home for their kids or their loved ones.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't probably get junk because, like, yeah, well, it's just a waste. To me, it's just to give them junk is like, I mean, why waste your money?
Right.
But if you give them something they would actually use over and over, that has your name on it, you know, that's a
Right.
good thing. And then sometimes it's like you said, just go to see what everybody else is doing and to sometimes make connections.
Mhm.
Like, who are the distributors? Who are the people that are,
Mhm.
you know, have these booths? Because that's the people that I might be wanting to place an order with me, and so I can get their information in a
Well,
reverse
and-
way
and you
without
also have-
paying.
You also
for
have
the
to
booth.
think about, okay, are the people coming to your booth because they're interested in your product? Or are they coming to your booth because they're interested in your giveaway?
Yeah, there you go.
Alright, and if
Or
you've got a
maybe-
really hot giveaway and they're
Mhm.
crowding your booth and you can't get the people that are serious at,
Yeah.
to talk to, then you've got a problem there too.
Duct Tape did a good job, didn't they? With all the they have scented duct tape now. There's like 5 different flavors, and they had
Yes, all the
candy
different
that
colors.
tasted just like the flavors. So that drew everyone in. Within the store, sell battery storage, little plastic injection molded parts. They were just giving those away, and that was their product. So it was interesting, like strategy. But yeah, duct tape was my favorite because it was good candy. That's what I charged.
Yeah.
Kind of something that Teresa brought up about the the game prize wheel.
Yeah.
From your experience in the trade shows and everything, setting them up, do you plan on, with all my activity that I'm supplying, whether it's a prize or just displaying it, do you factor in how long you plan for visitors to stay in your booth? Because like if you have a prize wheel and it starts attracting a line,
Yeah.
and it kind of overshadows what
It's
you're
true.
doing. So
That's right.
how do you strategize for keeping people
Mhm.
keeping people in long enough to get the information, but keeping them moving?
So you make
so
the
they don't-
line so it goes through your booth, and then you make the prizes. Like, I think Colorado Fabrics, I was at this show and they had this prize wheel, and you got like a certain percentage off at their store.
Yes. Yeah.
And then plus the line was right through all their displays, so you're standing there in line to get to the
Oh, that's good.
wheel,
Yeah.
That's good.
and you're looking at their displays on both sides.
I've been to those
Hmm.
too.
And in addition, everyone that gets a goodie, scan their card, so you get their name
That's
and
right.
Yeah.
phone number,
Yeah.
Yeah.
company.
This
all
is
that stuff.
all of
certainly-
this. This goes
That's
back
key.
to what I said early on about the pre, the during, and the
Right.
post.
Mhm.
It is a well thought out launch to go to a trade show, or put one on like Denver. It used to be Denver Fabrics, but they did them every year. I love going to those.
Yeah.
But I always got in trouble because you're right, standing in line to get to the wheel.
Then you've got
You're looking
a
at
whole
all
bu-
this
bunch
eye
of
candy
things.
along the way that
Right,
they've set up
purchases that-
deliberately.
So then you go out with your % off, and then you're like, oh, I got to check out now and pay
Right.
for all these
Right.
little
Yeah.
knickknacks or
So
whatever.
but it all goes
novelties.
back to putting all those plans in place before you end up going to the trade show, so you know what to expect. You don't come home saying, "Oh darn, I should have had a fishbowl and collected cards," or get home with a fishbowl full of cards and say, "This person looks interesting. I think I talked to him, but I'm not sure. What did we talk about?"
Yeah, you gotta
Okay.
be
And do
really,
you have
really
somebody
quick.
to take the
with
time
that
to call
stuff.
those people?
Exactly.
Oh, gee,
Okay.
I don't have anybody that has time to call people. I gotta hire somebody.
That's
for
why I
situation.
said over 80% never get
Yeah.
return calls.
Well, then you
Yeah.
start getting annoying emails. They're just like, once you give them your card, it's just like they start pummeling
Mhm.
you with emails and just like, oh, stop the spam.
Hmm. Yeah. But, answer them and think if you were on the other side of it. Don't worry about hurting feelings. Just say, saw your product at the show. Thank you for contacting me, but I've chosen a different direction.
Just not interested. Thanks.
Yeah, not interested.
Remove me from your list, please.
Right, right.
Unsubscribe.
Yeah, unsubscribe. And by law, when you send out emails like that, you have to have an unsubscribe at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
That's
so
legal.
That's illegal now.
Oh, it's been for a while.
Okay.
But
So
they don't
then-
actually honor it though.
Not everyone does. I get
Yeah,
one
that's-
once in a while that doesn't have one at the
Well,
bottom.
no, I mean I
Or it says-
unsubscribe, but they never
And they
honor
don't
it.
even.
Oh, I
they
see.
never-
Oh,
they
that
then
kind
keep
of thing.
sending you.
You're
Oh,
worried
that's.
if it's a phishing, that's a virus itself.
Mm-hmm.
You're afraid to click on anything.
Yeah. So the next thing is the company trade shows. Company trade shows are, well, a perfect example would be Ace Hardware. They make a lot of money on their regional shows. And they charge you, if you're invited, they charge you about $1,000 to go to a regional show. Now, the upside is that if you go to that show and some of the owners of these independent franchise Ace Hardwares like it, they put it in and it's successful and starts moving, you are going to end up snowballing that. So that may be a very good investment. So if you have a show that maybe you want to take to the National Hardware Show, you may want to start with Ace or do Ace in addition to, depending upon your budget. But again, it's all about your marketing strategy and how are you going to get the word out about your product. But these company trade shows usually have a fee, it's a pay to play. And one of the stores at least has to recommend you to even be there. And they take applications and then they decide who they want to take to the show. But again, you better be ready to have product available for them to buy. They also have some corporate buy days where, and a lot of the companies do this, even the pet products companies will have corporate buy days where they'll invite people in. And if you find out when those buy days are, you can apply for them and you go and you meet with a buyer and talk about your product. Reverse trade shows. This is one Bill gave a quizzical look. Most people don't know what that is. But that, normally when you go to a trade show, you're walking around looking at the booth, and or you're the vendor and you're sitting there waiting for somebody to come to your booth. This is flipping that. Okay? You go to these reverse trade shows, you have about 10 minutes to do your pitch, leave your materials, and you are meeting with the buyer of a company. So it's extremely focused. You will find buyers there, you'll find liquidators there sometimes. Because, if you were at the show last year and you ordered a lot of product in, and for some strange reason you've redesigned it and you've got all this inventory to get rid of, there are liquidators there who will take it on. They'll buy it for pennies on the dollar. So it depends on why you're going there as to which company you want to meet with. And all of these are scheduled in advance. And it's like all the vendors, or excuse me, not the vendors, the companies sit at tables like this, and they're on the buyer's on one side, and they have a little sign there that says, I'm Ace Hardware, or I'm, PetSmart, or some other garden center. And it'll be sitting on their table and with a number on it. Okay? And you have a list of what time you're supposed to be at what table. And you're behind this little curtain in this big room where all the people who are coming, they're vendors. You want to sell your products. Okay? So they ring a bell. It's like school. You go, bell rings, you got 10 minutes. You get to that table like now, 10 minutes, do your presentation, get out of there, wait for the next one. The bell rings at the end of the 10 minutes.
Like
Okay.
speed dating, huh?
Speed dating, you got it. But you are meeting one-on-one with the decision makers.
That's what it's all about.
So it's really a wonderful opportunity. But you have to know how to do a presentation in 10 minutes. Okay? You
But
can't
how do
go in there and run overtime. Doesn't work.
How do you get those one-on-ones with the companies? I mean, there must be a line, you know, like 50 to 100 people wanting to get that seat. How are you chosen?
Well, the people that, I mean, you're going to pay to go to that show.
Mm-hmm.
The companies get their way paid. That's the way it works. Okay? If they get the buyer there, they'll pay the buyer's way to have that show. So the buyers, one after the other, are meeting with these people for 10-minute periods. But it's a combination. You tell them who you want to see, because they're going to give you the list in advance. Then the buyers on the other, side are going to look at the products that are being brought to them, and they're going to prioritize those. So you could get bumped. But they guarantee that you'll get so many appointments within that time period. Because if you can see this picture, that is a conference room. They're huge, big ballroom, and it's loaded with tables. And then you see what I'd call a green room in theater, you would, where all the vendors are behind waiting their turn to get to go to one of these tables. It's really fun. And they also have, at these reverse trade shows, they'll have an area that's set aside so that the vendors who are coming to sell their wares also have a small display area set up so that the buyers later can go and look at those displays and see the products as well. So it's kind of it's a real different approach to a trade show. I like it. I've been successful with it with clients that in industries where they'll do this. Yeah.
Are they industry specific? Like reverse trade shows just for hardware?
Usually they are. Yeah. One of the biggest in the country is one that actually is headquartered out of Monument, Colorado. And it's this one here, the National Lawn and Garden Show. And I know the guy that runs that. I've been involved with it for some time.
So the National Lawn and Garden is out of Monument?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now they hold their shows, I think, in Chicago a lot of times.
But that's a
They one year they had it here in Colorado, but I think it was what's the name of that convention center that they have it up there? I can't think of it offhand. But this particular picture I think was taken up there, and that's where that one was in Chicago, and I went to Chicago on behalf of a client for that show.
So do you have a list of these reverse trade shows?
I don't have a list. It would take some research to find where there is one for a particular industry.
Okay.
They're not as plentiful as the typical industry trade shows, but there are some ways, if you do some research on the industry trade shows, where you can actually have that kind of a one-on-one. At the hardware show they have those too. You pay to play, again, but and you have to do it early, and that's where the pre-plan comes in, because the forms to meet with a buyer from Stanley Tools, for example, they're going to be full. So if you don't get your application in right away, you aren't going to get a place to even see them. But also, it's sort of like the reverse trade show in that the buyers also have the opportunity to say, no, I don't want to see this one. So it goes back to the research, what trade show you think is going to be viable for you, and then how can you leverage that show? And it does take a lot of time, but it's well worth it, because you don't want to go to that show and then go home and say, I could have met with the company that would be ideal for my product, and I didn't know it. That's a major oops.
I was gonna ask you, for the private trade shows, like the ACE one, how hard is it to get invited to those, or how do you do that?
Well, I have my own strategy for doing that, and I like to get a product into one ACE hardware as a demo, maybe on consignment to get some sales history, and then you've got a champion for you to go on to either other Ace Hardwares that that owner has, if it does well, or also then they will recommend you for the regional show. So it's all about positioning to be able to get there. But it's usually somebody within the industry. I happen to have a neighbor 2 doors down from me that owns 3 Ace Hardware stores in Colorado. He
Which
didn't.
ones does he own?
One on Alameda and Broadway, I think, is one
Yeah,
of them.
there's one by the Kmart there.
Yeah, he had that one, and then he's got 2 others.
I used to know a lot of the people that own it because I go in there all the time. Used
Mhm.
to know a lot of the owners and way back. Yeah.
Yeah. When I launched the pet product that did phenomenally well for the last 18 years, that one got launched at AAA Trading on Broadway and Green Mountain.
Trading Post.
Yeah, A&A
See,
Trading,
I
that's
knew
it.
the owners for years.
Yeah.
Because I had a metal shop across the street, so I'd go over there like 3 times a day.
Mhm.
So I know them personally, on
Mhm.
a personal level. They used to be the highest volume Ace Hardware in the whole country
Yes.
at one point.
Yeah.
Galley?
Yeah. They were
Those
great.
guys made millions and
Mhm.
millions of dollars. They inherited it from their fathers. and
Wow.
Made a fortune, and now it's not doing that well because they
Yeah.
got out of it. But
Mhm.
Yeah, Ace Hardware is so interesting to me because I understand, yeah, it's individually owned. I mean, of course, it's all Ace Hardware, but it's
Right.
it's
They're franchised.
yeah, that
Right.
nature of it, yeah.
Right. And again, it goes back to there's a strategy involved with doing that. When I launched that pet product, I went to the Ace Hardware stores because I wanted them to have the product in inventory, even if it was on consignment on a specific day, because that's when I had targeted the media blitz. And the media blitz was so blasted successful that the stores we had them in sold out within the day. And so then we were restocking the next day. And within 3 months, we had national distribution on that product because of the timing was perfect for that. Okay, consumer trade shows is the 5th one, and that's where you're actually going in to sell something. I don't know if you saw the presentation. It was a client of mine that was in here, Don Brinkman, that showed the little gadget that hung a mini liquor bottle from a Christmas tree.
Yo, absolutely.
You know, you see that presentation? Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Well,
it's a great
the
one,
annual holiday gift show is where he launched that product.
Yeah, how's he doing? Or,
I don't know how he's doing with
gosh.
it since then because I finished the work
Mhm.
that I was doing with him.
Right.
But I got him in probably, somewhere between 6 and 10 liquor stores in
Okay.
Colorado for the
Yeah,
holiday.
Yeah.
And
he really
and
made
we
a big push last year to get that. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
months we're talking. He really. Yeah.
Mhm. But in reality, it was a short time frame that it all took place. Within 3 months, we were all over the place. So it was, it was a very good launch. And he went to the holiday food and gift show. But the consumer trade shows is where you're actually selling products there. Okay? And that could be anything. I mean, like the annual holiday food and gift show. Have you ever been there? Okay. It's like a circus. I mean, they've got people there that are selling balloons. There'll be people selling jewelry, fluorescent name tag holders. You name it. I mean, it's just anything that you would buy for the holiday as a gift. Jewelry, Don's product, novelty items, you name it. There are just all kinds of things. But the consumers go there because they want to buy things for gifts. And they have really unusual things. I mean, some of the glassware even is, there's a woman in Evergreen that makes some hand painted glassware that you drop this, it's very expensive glass, but you can drop it on a concrete floor and it won't break. It's beautiful stuff. And she sells it in museums all over the country. But she goes to this holiday food and gift show and makes a fortune there. And some booths fall flat. But
in the holiday, actually, because I have a client who would do well there, the holiday food and gift show. Okay.
Mhm.
And where do they host it, Bonnie?
usually downtown convention center.
So it is here in the state and everything.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So boat show, and of course you know that even if you go to a RV or boat show, it's not necessarily boats that some of the booths are. It's novelty items. It might be a lint picker upper or something. So there are a lot of people who just go from show to show, doesn't matter the specific industry, because they want a consumer show where people are buying things. So it's just another strategy depending upon what kind of products you have as to whether that's suitable for you or not.
How does cost, say, for the booth compare with consumer show and industry show?
Consumer shows are very cheap.
They're
I mean, you
less
may look like at $400,
Oh,
$500 maybe for 10 by 10.
so industry's like the highest.
Industry is the highest. And you want to see the highest industry show is usually consumer electronics.
Okay, so that is an industry show there.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And you have people from all over the world coming to that.
Yeah.
For various reasons.
Yeah.
Okay, so being prepared is the key to being successful with shows. As you can tell, there are a lot of different ways to go forward depending upon where you are in the development of your product, what your capabilities are, what results you want out of a show. Where does your product fit? Are you ready for a reverse trade show where you're going to be taking orders for 100,000 units, on the spot? What is your purpose in going to the trade show?
Yeah, I heard people like go to trade shows. A lot of them just come up with like a sheet of who they want to visit, what booths. It's sort of like they plan exactly how they're gonna navigate, because the trade shows are just so big, and there are your concrete floors and the lights, and it's people just get exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And not only just the exhibitors, but the people that are attending, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's why I don't know how many shows you've been to or been involved in, but like because I've had clients in so many industries, I keep getting materials about the shows, and then because they assume I'm coming, like to the hardware show, I get all these mailings from people that are exhibiting there saying, come visit us at X and booth 5552.
Yeah, I got some
Okay.
grass for rabbits in the mail because they thought I was coming back to Super Zoo this last year.
Mhm.
And I'm like, my daughter and her boyfriend are like, hey, you guys, I got some grass in the mail. And they were all like, oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, it's rabbit grass.
Yeah, but see, that's the kind of thing that people do, because if you were really in the mood
They're
for
all
buying,
happy.
you might say, oh yeah, I wanted to see these
Mom's
guys.
cool.
Let me keep that card.
Mhm.
So that's part of the pre-show.
Yeah.
Excuse me, pre-show marketing.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and some of these we already went over. Do you have a website? Do you have business cards?
You grass.
You have a presentation. Look for opportunities at the show, because of the reverse trade show concept is there at a lot of the industry shows as well. It's just not as public because they don't want everybody going there. So you have to do a little research in advance. There's the link here on your paperwork, I think is interesting. They talk about tricks of the trade for trade shows. You might want to go to that website. Inc. Magazine put that out, and just has some little tidbits of things that you want to be aware of. Finding the trade show you need to go to. Here are the links to do that. These are probably the two best to go to. There used to be one called Trade Show Central. That one I don't think is active anymore. It seems like it goes nowhere or lands on a spam site. So look for the type of trade show. You can go in here and you can put, what your product is or what, specific keywords in there, and it'll come up with a list of trade shows for you in one of these. So, it depends on how you want to search for it. Also go into Google, search your industry. Look at your competitors. What shows are they going to? A lot of people don't even think about that. Who's a competitive product and where are they going? Because if they're going there and they've been in the business for a while, that's probably a show you need to go to.
Some of them you have to be members of, like the association.
That's right.
So,
Pet Products Manufacturers
Yeah, like
Association will have
International Pet
thousands of
Products.
dollars to join the association
yeah, it's like
first.
$10,000 to join the association, plus then your 5,000 booth, plus.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
So.
Yeah, but that's why it's really important to look at an overall, fast-tracked marketing plan for your product before you just start going in and doing a shotgun approach and
Like,
saying,
who
I'm
has
going to
that
go to
kind of
this
money?
show and then find out you can't afford it.
Yeah, well.
You know. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, or why blow all of your money on one show before you're ready to
Mhm.
be at that level? So.
Mhm. And something
maybe
else
like-
may be even better for you. Maybe the way you start selling your product is not at a show at all
Right.
because your budget doesn't allow it. So you may want to say, okay, now how do I best launch this on the internet?
Or go to the places that sell these things directly and
Mhm.
contact their buyers.
Hmm. And that's
Why-
becoming
why-
less and less effective because if it's a retail product, because shelf space is becoming more and more limited because people are buying things over the internet. So that's why it's so critical. I mean, every 5 years there seems like a major shift in marketing new products. So looking at an overall picture of your product, what your capabilities are, what your budget is, what is appropriate to get your product out there, and then you kind of prioritize, what's going to give you the best bang for your buck. It may or may not be a trade show.
Or maybe targeting the buyer. I watched this one YouTube video about this guy who developed the oral pet breath thing, and he didn't really know how to market, so he just went to the local college and asked the marketing students to help him come up with a plan. And so they decided, well, we're going to get it in Walmart. And so
that'd blow his market.
they just targeted the buyers at Walmart with a social media campaign and everything like that. And eventually, apparently they have like whatever you call those corner units in Walmart with this
Mhm.
little thing to give pets good breath.
Point of purchase.
Or a pet or what, I don't know what
Mhm.
they call it. But, here's this guy who's probably in his 80s who had invented this product. It was pretty, interesting, cool. But he was, able to, connect with the younger people that were more, social media savvy
Yes.
at the local college, and they were able to say, hey, well, here's a cool product, and then we can,
Mhm.
combine the two.
Mhm.
And now, they have a successful product, and I'm sure that the kids in the class are all part owners of Pet, and
Mhm.
everybody's sharing in the
Yeah.
excitement
And
of this.
that's a fun way to do it too. Yeah, the universities can be a help with some caution because sometimes the university ends up having some rights to the product, or you're disclosing before you have your patenting in place if they're doing design work. So there may be agreements that you need to have in place about signing over any intellectual property rights, even though they may be co-inventors. So there are other issues there to consider when you're going within a university or someone to help you with that.
Yeah, I don't know that they'd be co-inventors, but they would be,
They would if they came up with something that made it patentable.
Oh, well,
If they're
I
developing
think
the
the guy had
product.
already patented it. It was
Yeah.
just he needed help marketing.
Yeah, that's a
And
different
marketing
scenario.
and packaging and all that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but I still think he gave up, and I'm sure he gave up part of the company, which is
Mhm.
probably
Let's say,
not-
would you want
yeah.
90% of my company or 1% of Microsoft?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I don't think it's a big question. Okay, so sometimes taking a smaller percentage puts more money in your pocket.
Smaller percentage of something is better than a big percentage of nothing.
That's right. So, any questions that you,
If
Kathy?
I'm-
Yeah.
Well, we things around pet products. I've got a pet product, and I'm at the pet product show. I've got a booth, and there's interest. So, is Petco going to be someone who comes through there, right? And they're looking for new products.
Mhm.
So, how hard is it for me to get on the shelf, or do I? Now, I've heard these deals like sometimes at the retailers, people have to buy or rent shelf space.
In grocery
Versus
stores, a lot of times in
They call them
grocery
the end
stores,
caps,
you,
right?
yeah,
You
you
buy
have
these
well
end
end
caps.
caps. It It depends, but shelf space is limited, and they do their planograms sometimes as long as a year in advance, depending upon the industry. Clothing industry, they're going to do it probably every quarter to every 6 months, so they're changing out their planogram. And if you miss the timing of that, then you're not going to see your product on a shelf for a while. The other thing is that they're consolidating, so the consumer's getting less and less choices on retail shelves because the square footage rent space is so high now. So they're limiting, maybe they'll only take 3 products in your category. And if they already have those 3
Now, that's
spots
where I
filled,
don't have to rent space in the store.
no, you don't have to
They're
rent
gonna
space,
put
but
it in-
they may not take it. Because in order to take your product, they gotta bounce somebody else.
Right.
From what you're
just a
saying-
Fixed amount of space, but what's the deal? I mean, they put me in and like, are they gonna say, you need to sell so many in 3 months or 6 months? If you don't make these,
Yeah,
if it
you're
doesn't
gone.
sell this much, then,
That's right, you're gone.
you know.
Hmm.
Not only that, but if it all sells out in a day, they're gonna be calling you up saying, I want that shelf filled up tomorrow.
Right.
And that's the problem with something like Walmart. And this is the way it used to be, I don't know, because I haven't talked to anybody that's dealt with them in over 10 years, but it used to be their terms for delivery were very specific and had high penalties if you couldn't meet
You had to
them.
be
Still
there
do.
the right day,
Yeah,
or else
yeah.
you're
With-
penalized.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and they could put a small company right out of business.
Yes, and they usually don't take products from small companies for that reason,
Yeah.
or single product. There are other routes to go through.
Yeah.
And one of the things they want to know is who you're selling it to and at what price. And you better be able to sell it to them at a lower price than what you're already selling it out there for. So again, it goes back to your pricing strategy to start with to get that right, because you've got to plan on who your down the road retailer is going to be of that product.
Right. Retailers 5 years from now are gonna be different from 1 year from now. Yeah.
Yeah. And some retailers were saying, this was some time ago, but they were saying, well, if you're selling your product on the internet, we won't take it.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that, do they want like, I guess what you call exclusive distribution, like,
Some,
I have a pet
some do.
product, and Petco goes, okay, we're gonna give you a 6-month trial,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe it's a condition of that agreement that I cannot sell on my own online. Is that very
That's right.
common?
Right, well, that's what like,
Mhm.
they do, the independent
So I can't be
pet
a
product stores do
competitor.
that.
And then there's eyes like, well, the pricing issue, what am I selling them online, what are they going for at the store?
Yeah, and I've had people really blow it because I was working on a particular price point on a product that went into the promotions industry. And I may have mentioned this once before, but product was great. We were going to put it into the advertising promotions channel and get it on. There are 2 different avenues that are the best to go to for a promotional product. And she thought that, well, she would sell a few in advance because, give her some cash, right? So she puts it up on her website at a price that was far below what we were going to sell it to the industry for. And she figured, well, she was going to make a few dollars an item by doing that. Well, she gets a call and she's all excited, calls me, just totally coming unglued about in peeing her pants because she got a call from AT&T and they wanted thousands of these for some big convention that they had. And she thought she was going to make a lot of money on it at the price that she put it on the internet. Well, then the woman at AT&T says, well, we need you to go through this particular promotional products company because they handle all of our promotional products. So all of a sudden, she would have to pay money to have A&T take her product because she didn't price it right. It was going to cost her more than what she had listed it on the internet for to pay this intermediary that AT&T dealt with. So if you don't understand the marketplace and that particular issue, when she told me, I was like, okay, now how do I tell her she just shot herself in the foot? But she lost the order over it.
But you see multiple, I guess, marketing channels for similar products all the
Mhm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm thinking, there's the Diesel store, and they sell the Diesel watches. Macy's sells Diesel watches, the same watch, and it looks like they, I don't know, they work keep the prices pretty close. And then they're sold online,
Mm-hmm.
and they're sold in Amazon.
Mm-hmm. It's all about the marketing pricing strategy up front. If you don't consider all those things, then you're either going to, you're either going to by chance get it right, which is not real likely. You don't really think this through, or you're going to end up eliminating some channels that you can't get your product into.
Because if it's the same product, you know, people are just gonna go to the channel, oh, well, it's 20% less.
Right,
here,
right.
So I'll never buy from these other channels.
There are also, depending upon your product, there are ways of selling into Saks Fifth Avenue and selling it at the local TJ Maxx store as well.
Right.
But there are strategies for doing that, but you have to think about that up front or you miss that opportunity.
Well, sometimes your independents want your product not to be sold in the big box because they want to have a competitive advantage
That's right.
with their customers, and if their customers know the only place they can get this cool product is at an independent retailer rather than the big box.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know on the bricks and mortars, I've heard of contract terms, like they'll have a 30-mile radius
Mm-hmm.
of competition for this product.
That's right.
So if you have another marketing channel, it has to
Mhm.
be way on the other side of town or something.
Yeah, and the issues about online versus not online, that comes into play too. And whether it's an industrial product that you're selling online or whether it's a consumer product, a lot of those same things carry over. So if you're putting a bracket for a GPS unit, like, the guy that I had here a while back with, who was a surveyor, and had a product in the surveying industry. Knowing the different ways in which to put it out there and whether McMaster-Carr will take it or not.
Well, even online, I mean, if I got a product, I'm selling it on Amazon, and then I'm selling it direct
Mm-hmm.
to my website.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, who writes all these legal contracts? I know you may
Well, I
know
think
what
the
you want to
big,
do,
the
but
big
then
mass,
who writes them up?
the big mass retailers are gonna,
Pretty
Yeah.
much take it or
The
leave it.
the
Shove it
large
down your
retailers
throat.
will send you a contract
Or
and
in the
discuss
same
those terms in advance, and
Okay.
some of them are negotiable and some of them are not.
Mhm.
And the sooner you can get your product off the ground, the better, because when you start approaching 18 years on your patent,
Yep.
they'll take it away from you because they know it's going to cost you a fortune to fight them.
2 years.
And I've already had that happen with one of my clients. 2 years from patent expiration, they went offshore and made the product